Hey everybody, it's Samson Folk, it's Trevon Heath, and it is the Pull Up Trey podcast wherein Trey balls up. Guess what? That is a lot. There's a lot of bass in
Like the
that
octave goes
intro.
up every week. I'm enjoying it.
Yeah. Just scream for it. I'll say this quickly because I always forget. Make sure to like, subscribe, and comment. It's good for the podcast. We know you like what we do. It's a popular podcast. Help us be even more popular. That's what we crave. There's a 7-year-old child in all of us. We want to be the popular kid on the playground. You get lice, shave your head, get back out on the monkey bars. Trevon, how you doing, man?
I don't even know how to follow that, but I'm doing great. Like the West Coast games have been taking me out. It's really let me know like how old I am. But like the third quarter, I'm getting a little coffee. I'm trying to get my second win and like trying to survive these games. It's insane.
Yeah, it is kind of funny because this is my job. This is my job. You have a whole other job you're doing, and I'm like, hey, come podcast with me, brother. I want to hear what you think. And so to ask you to add that on, you've been very gracious with your time. I think I like just to give people the update. The Raptors are 2-10. They have the worst record in the league. They're one of the worst defenses in the league. They are super, super injured. We will have an injury update right away and a whole bunch of great talking points in this podcast. But firstly, Trey, what do you think about the word frick?
In terms of like white vernacular, it's in my top five. Like frick
Is
is like
that
so it's versatile. Like you
do
can use it
black people don't say frick?
there's I've never heard a black person in my life say frick.
I haven't heard. I guess I've only heard it from white people.
Like it's just like it's like a more aggressive darn. Like darn like gives
Mm,
me a level of softness that like I can't respect, but like frick, it lets me know like this is like a manly man.
no,
I
frick it. You have in your for people listening on audio, you have in your little name geek next to it. I think frick is a geeky word.
you think I think darn is Greek is geeky. It's like oh gosh darn it,
But
but
you,
like
if you use that voice, anything can be geeky. But like for example, I say like dagum, dadgummit, like
yeah.
Western, let's say Texas vernacular, maybe Midwestern. Um, I don't think that's geeky. I mean, it could be if you go, I don't know. I think it only gets more Western the more you exaggerate. But anyway, frick, I missed the boat on it. Like I completely, that is the white vernacular I don't have in my bag whatsoever. I've never been a frick man.
You don't say frick. You don't say fudge
No.
either. Are
What,
you?
who do you, who are
You ever heard
you?
someone say fudge?
What kind of white people you hang out with? Just
I have a corporate
1990s television?
I have a corporate job, so I hear fudge quite often.
Okay. Okay, well, I'm glad we figured it out. In the comments, let us know where you stand on the word frick. It's not something I use, but and also I'd really like to hear from across racial boundaries. Are you Asian and say frick? Are you black and say frick? Help us break these barriers. Let's see. Anyway, so the Raptors are very injured, Trevon. I will give the update. We'll read it as quickly as we possibly can because it's painful to read through. Emmanuel quickly. So he had the pelvic contusion. He missed a handful of games. I think it was 9 games with it. He comes back, and in his second game, he sustains a partially torn UCL. It's the pitcher injury. The In Street Clothes blog kind of aggregated all of the UCL injuries in the NBA, and the average missed games for a UCL sprain tear is 20 games. It's 13 games or 28 days for players with partial tears or sprains. That's Emmanuel quickly. And then, In Street Clothes, who compiled all of the UCL injuries, they stated that surgeries weren't required for any of the partial tears. So, using the history of UCL injuries in the NBA, seems like Emmanuel Quickly is probably going to miss anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks and probably avoid surgery. That is the best guess. Now, we are probably, regarding Scottie Barnes, about a week away, maybe 6 days away. It's in that time period from the end of his 3-week grace/healing period after the right orbital fracture. We will be updated. That doesn't mean he's coming back in a week. It just means okay, he can be assessed. Maybe he starts practicing before then. Maybe he hasn't touched the floor since then. We don't really know, but we can expect an update at that point in time. Kelly Olynyk is probably a week or so away due to his back. The lumbar is out of whack for him. And that's based on what timeline Darko gave us last week. Bruce Brown won't be back until at least December. And Jacoby Walter, we haven't gotten an update on because it's just like so far down. This guy just recently got injured. It's an injury he missed a decent amount of time with, almost like he missed like a month of basketball, training camp, preseason, everything with this injury prior. So it's an injured team, Trey. What are your thoughts on an injured team?
My thoughts on injuries aren't good. They're awful. I think like the quickly one. I know, astounding analysis. The
No, I'm
quickly,
making that face because you recently sustained a very bad injury.
sometimes I forget like it happens. It feels like some sort of like a dream. And,
Your
like
ankle feels that good now that it's like it's just in the past?
I remember like a point where I couldn't walk, like physically could barely move it. So like maybe that's just like optimism and graciousness, but like there was like I don't even remember like how it happened. Like I don't remember the pain of like
Wow.
thing, but who
Interesting.
knows? Um, I think the quickly injuries like absolutely brutal, just because how many games the team has played without him. You saw it like within the couple of games that he did play. Like integrating him and integrating the amount of shots that he takes is extremely tough. And like they were gonna need probably another 5 to 6 games to like actually integrate him. How that's going to work because the Grady Dick, even the RJ Barrett that he played with last aren't the same guys. They require a heavy dosage of shots and like fitting that in. And even Scottie, when he's back within the next week or two, it was going to take some time. It was going to be interesting to see. And now they're probably going to have to do this towards like later, closer to the new year, which makes things a lot tougher because you probably have a month and change until the All-Star break and the season goes on from there. So it's just a hard situation. And when you're in a rebuild trying to evaluate what you have, you need the guys on the court. So I'm just hoping he's back. And once everybody's together, they mesh and gel and we see what the team actually is.
Hopefully, as you said, you need to see it happen. You need the film, you need the data to kind of observe how these guys fit together. So much of the excitement around the trades wasn't like, oh, well, Emmanuel Quickly is good, and RJ Barrett is good, and X and Y are good. Jordan Nwora is good. Like it wasn't like, yeah, we've got all these great pieces. It was the thought behind it that these pieces fit together, and there's
Mhm.
a overall hierarchy of basketball that works and makes sense. And we just haven't seen it. And it's been a long time without seeing it. So, as much fun as it is to talk about Grady, and we will, uh, kind of popping off, we want to see these guys playing together. Like at the end of the day, I know there's a lot of people, and definitely some listeners of this podcast, who are quietly like, yes, when a player gets injured because they want the tank, right?
You
Like
just spoke to like the underbelly of of all darkness in franchises.
it's a real thing though,
It
you know.
is.
And there's, I mean, probably somebody in the Raptors organization who's like, yes, you know, like
Yeah.
it's injuries are a part of basketball. The good thing is that these guys will be looked after, that they have guaranteed contracts, and that they will be back. And there's nothing, no injury has been like career altering. It's just maladies stacked on maladies. 11 minutes seems like a bit steep for the frick dialogue and injury dialogue, don't you think? You want to get to something more fun?
Let's have some fun.
Okay, so new segment. Woo, 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 woo. Segment time. We've never done segments, but we have one here. This is called 3 Good Stats, 3 Bad Stats. It is basically stolen from Jalen to Jacoby, where Jalen would be like, or sorry, Jacoby would be like, hey, do you like this, Jalen? And he would decide whether or not to talk about something. I'm white. Trey is black. Guess which roles? Guess which roles we are assuming. Trey, you stop me when you find the thing you want to talk about. We're going to start with 3 good stats. The first stat, Jakob Poeltl is 3rd in the NBA in screen assists.
Pass.
Okay. Raps are 1st in rebound rate.
Pass.
Gradey Dick is leading the Raptors in points, 3-pointers made, and free throws made.
Light them up. Light them up.
Okay. Take us there, Papa Bear. What do you want to talk about?
Just to like start off, I apologize for any pessimism heading into our season opening combo about him. we set a marker around 11, maybe 13 points, and I felt we were on like the bullish side. We we were nowhere close to the level of play that he's been able to get towards.
I looked at Basketball Reference,
Yeah.
and they were projecting 15 points per game.
Oh
I
damn, we're
don't no.
shills.
I don't think we were projecting 11 points. We just made that the over under,
Yeah,
which of
yeah.
course that's an easy dunk. Like we were like, yeah, he'll score more than 11 points per game. But like, hey, dumbass, he's scoring 20, but you know what I mean. But anyway, go ahead.
I think what's the interesting thing is, and we've like touched upon this. It feels like every week now is that I knew heading into the like coming into the team, he was more than a shooter. There was creation upside, but for it to pop off, literally, he hasn't even played 82 games yet. The fact that he's able to create. You saw even yesterday as he's able to get downhill, use his body, bump off of guys, fade away, scoring things like that. His rep as like a dynamic scorer has translated to him becoming like one of the best guys attacking closeouts in the league, and it's leading to free throws. His free throw rate would be Scottie's career high. If you told me that would be something that he could even like possibly achieve, it wouldn't. I would probably say like let's be a little, let's be a little on the cautious side, just because there's so many shots and so many guys. He's gotten the opportunity just because of the injuries, and like he's punched through whatever glass ceiling that I thought was there for him. If you leave this season
Wait,
entering,
can I ask you a question?
I,
So the glass ceiling is
I
supposed to be like a
no, I said I was just gonna pass by. I was just.
is these white men punching through glass ceilings.
When I said it, I was like, "Oh shit!"
uh, to your point though, Gradey, and especially like the free throw rate, right? Is the I've co-written articles with him, the Korean doctor Polar. Uh, a lot of people love his analysis. He works in sports science in Korea, like, and he's been really fascinated with Gradey's bendability in his upper body, and says like his hip flexibility and all that kind of stuff, you know, it really enhances his ability to finish at the rim and draw fouls. And then you watch Gradey like slither past the closeout, which, as you mentioned, he's one of the best in the NBA, and just throw his body at a guy. I mean, we watched him do it against Brook Lopez repeatedly. He was like I tweeted, he has a reckless abandon for his body, and he threw his body at Splash Mountain until he scaled it. Like he wants it. He has gumption, man. Gumption, that young man. He has it. And what he's able to bring as far as scoring at three levels, what he's able to bring, and he hasn't been shooting the ball particularly well at the rim. He's missed some easy layups. He's taken a lot of tough ones, but this is offset by the fact that nobody's getting to the rim as often as he is with the Raptors. This guy, the guy with the glass ceiling. and just like here's a fun stat, right? So the Raptors offense still 14 points better with him on the floor. That's a 94th percentile swing. Now, the defense is only 1.5 points worse with him on the floor. Some of this is being attached to Jakob Poeltl. That helps, but like the Raptors are 12 points better with Gradey on the floor this year than without. And he's not sharing the floor with Scottie. He's not sharing the floor with IQ. He's just like, who is first on the game plan? It's RJ, yes, but it's like 1A and 1B.
Yeah, at this
It
point.
boggles the mind a little bit, I think.
And just like the array of ways that he's able to score, like 52% on pull up twos, 38% on pull up threes. He's scoring at all three levels in a way that like no one really saw, and like he's also using. I think like the passing flashes that he showed like last year, that's going to come out a bit more as he like real actualizes his level of play as a scorer, and teams are yet even more aggressive when he's attacking closeouts. But he's become in a way where you think now, like, whatever happens the rest of the season, if he continues this play, you're leaving the season feeling you have like two franchise cornerstones. And if this is year one, or even some people consider year two of a rebuild, you've already achieved like some of the hardest parts of getting a rebuild, and it's getting the stars. And he's trending to be a top 5 guy in his draft class, trending to be potentially a future all star. So you can find the pieces around. It's hard to find the guys who can get you and push the ball up the hill. And you saw it yesterday. They didn't win the game, but he was pushing the ball up. He was trying things that we haven't seen him do before and achieving and doing really well. So like when everyone is back, I think his shot diet in general just needs to be prioritized because it opens up a lot of what the Raptors can do. And from the games him and Scottie have played together, they mesh fairly well in a way that we initially thought like Quickly and Scottie were.
Yeah. And even though let's say the true shooting percentage, there's a chasm between Gradey and RJ right now. I still think RJ has been a more important offensive player, but to make a point about the unique type of stuff that Gradey brings, Giannis like hand waved away a 17-footer that RJ took last night. Like saw he was 17 feet away and was like, you know what? That's fine. That is not RJ's shot whatsoever. Short mid-range push shot, that's nice. When he's feeling it from 3, he can shoot above the break end from the corners. That's okay. At the rim, it's not gone that. We'll talk more about RJ in a bit. But when Gradey came off a handoff and Giannis was the low man, Gradey made Giannis keep up with him sideways across the whole court, 17, 18 feet from the basket. Giannis did not relent. He was right there. And that meant that since Giannis had to press so high up, Gradey pump entry pass to Jakob for such an easy like dump down layup. And that's the type of stuff like Gradey, I think he's passing on like 23% of his drives, that's like Zion Williamson, Kyrie Irving. Like is that truly appropriate for his talent? Maybe not, but he's getting after it. And that play against Giannis, for example, shows you that like his shooting and willingness to score at 3 levels means that as he develops and is surrounded by more talented teammates, there will be a vast array of playmaking opportunities for him. And just for like to focus on a fun little thing, and podcast listeners, if you want to see the film for this stuff, go to the YouTube video and it'll be overlaid. YouTube video watchers, hell yeah, brother, you're here. You get to see it. So Gradey is a top 15% half court scorer in the NBA per synergy. That's great. The Raptors are the second best baseline out of bounds team in the NBA as far as points per possession. Gradey is responsible for over a third of their makes. The one guy, their baseline out of bounds play is like get Gradey the ball. And the most common is they just run a double stagger grenade for him to make one of his fading baseline jumpers. Now, if his defender over pursues, he can pump and go to the rim. That's great too. But just setting double stagger for him, he comes in, catches, makes something happen with it. And then also they have a play with him where he is the inbounder. He throws the release up above the break. Then Jakob Poeltl, who's low, sets a pin down for him. He catches and moves into space. Like he is over a third of the Raptors' prominent, great baseline out of bounds plays. And it's pretty simple. It's just get Gradey in motion and we'll score. That's awesome, man. Like I can hardly express to you how cool it is that the Raptors just have a walking, talking baseline out of bounds hack. It's important to score in those plays. It's important to be able to like go to your coach and say, do we have an option here with a dead ball situation? We need to make something happen. Yep. If you have a guy who you just like, it's a couple screens and an inbounder, that's awesome.
It just bodes well to like future projection for the rest of the season because of like the array of ways he's actually scoring. It's not like heading into the season, if you told me he scored 20, having a similar season to like Buddy Hield, who's shooting like the piss out of the ball. And he's getting up 7 or 8 threes and he's hitting 45% of those. That seemed like a realistic path, but he's actually become a creation hub for the Raptors. They're throwing him the ball and asking him to make something, sometimes out of nothing. And the gravity that he's getting as his play continues and is growing is showing that he's able to, like, there will be more adjustment. Teams will start overloading on his side and probably not caring who's on the other corner, even if it's Ochai. But I think he has the requisite skills to make those reads. And like some of the some of the plays, especially probably heading like into the fourth, could have maybe been seen as some over aggression because like he was just absolutely feeling it.
Mm-hmm.
Him scoring 20, 25 will feel like a regular night, and that play then becomes a dump off, becomes a kick out to the corner, and he becomes even more dangerous. So I think the next step and adjustments that are going to happen are fairly reasonable, and he can continue this play.
Anytime a guy is able to ratchet up usage and then efficiency follows, you just doff the cap, man. That's incredible. That's exactly what you want to see. And just for the baseline statistics, it's just shy of 59% true shooting, 20 points per game, 2.6 rebounds, which that will definitely go up, 2.3 assists, which that will go up. The points per game might not stick at 20, but he's awesome, man. I guess also we'll leave it for later. We're gonna do a redraft of the top 5 of his draft and see where he falls. We are back into our stolen segment, Trey. 3 bad stats. You stop me when you find it. The Raptors are 29th in defense. Does this interest you?
No, to be expected.
Jamal Shed is taking 40% of his shots from the short mid range. Do you want to dive in?
No.
The Raptors are 29th in 3 points made, 23rd in 3 points percentage.
Now this is interesting.
Okay.
Let's,
Rack it up. Take me there, Papa Bear. Let's go.
I when initially looking at the stat, it seems like fairly surprising because you see the Raptors like hit threes are hitting them at a fairly like decent clip this season from the corners. And even when you look at some of the best teams in the league offensively, they're getting to the rim now. I think when you look at the overall stat, it still needs like some context. The Raptors aren't shooting a lot of above the break threes. A lot of that was coming like through like Emmanuel Quickly, Scottie Barnes. Those guys were shooting above the break a lot last year. And a lot of the shooting that we're getting now is from Ochai and Gradey, and that's coming from the corner, running off movement and Grady's sense off baseline and shooting threes in that way. And that doesn't lead to as much volume as we probably would like to see overall. But the Raptors, I think, offensively, like are fairly good and are entering and shifting in ways that like represent what the NBA is now. Like I think mimicking like a Boston Celtics just isn't feasible for like the roster that we have. And most teams now have like multiple options that are getting to the rim, leading to rotations. And while our assists necessarily aren't a corner three, that's a dump off to Jakob Pertl, who's a really good finisher. Jonathan Mobile, who can really score as well, and hopefully in a couple of weeks, Scottie Barnes that will turn into a dunk. So like, I think it actually, I don't think it's a bad stat overall. It just goes, it shows like one, we've been fairly injured, and two, the Raptors are like shifting their thought process, and I think they're heading in the right direction offensively, at least.
I think the Raptors, obviously from the platonic ideal, you would say shoot more threes.
Yeah.
29th. I I don't know. I don't have the stats offhand, but I would struggle to believe a team shooting 29th in threes would have a lot of success, would be seen as one of the best teams in the NBA. And this makes sense for the Raptors currently, this lower volume, because they are getting to the rim a ton, as you said. That's important, and they're shooting terribly at the rim because it's not just Jakob shooting there. Like
Yeah.
Grady is subsidizing this by getting to the free throw line and shooting almost 90% from there, which is great. Like his free throw rate is high. He leads the team in free throws made. His at rim shooting like 50% there. That will change as his shots get easier because his shot diet is absurd right now. But he's also subsidizing this with made free throws. RJ is taking a ton of really tough shots at the rim. And like, as you said, Jonathan Mobo can score at the rim, but he's also going to have some tough ones there. Like he goes up and Chris Boucher is going to have tough ones there.
Yep.
Jamal Shed and Davion Mitchell are going to have tough ones there, you know, and Ochai, he's scoring them in transition and off of cuts, but it's pretty rare that he's like off the bounce getting to the rim.
Yeah.
They get to the rim. However, there's some fun, well, maybe even depressing stats, let's say. The reason why they don't shoot threes is, as you mentioned, IQ and Scottie provided so much of their volume above the break last season. This season, if you remove Grady and Ochai's shooting, their threes, the Raptors go from 33% as a team to 29% as a team. An NBA team, 29%. Their three-pointers account for 40% of the Raptors' overall three-point mix. as you said, the Raptors, they shoot okay from the corners. The corner threes, 38%. That's great. That's well, it's not great. It's 16th, but it's good. It's
Yeah.
good enough. But they can't create enough frequency there because they don't have enough good drivers to collapse the defense and push to the corner. As you said, you can't just emulate the Celtics whenever you want. And so, where does that push the shooting? Above the break. How many good above the break shooters do the Raptors have? They have Gradey Dick, they have Emmanuel Quickly, and Scottie Barnes had a good run
Yeah.
once. And he
Yeah.
still ended up shooting like 36% from above the break last season, if I remember correctly. Gradey by himself, Gradey Dick, the lone player, this is one guy, he accounts for 43% of the Raptors made above the break threes.
Insane.
And he's shooting 39% on those. So Gradey, one guy, is almost 50% of the Raptors' output above the break. These are the significant limitations of this team's roster. They can hit the shots from the corner when they get them. Big shout out to Ochai because he's been lights out from there. Chris Boucher has been okay from there. Lots of guys have been okay or passable from there. But that's a very small part of the court.
Yeah.
It's called a corner, and there's only two of them. And it's tough to create shots there because defenses don't want to give those up. What they're comfortable giving up is above the break threes. And guess who doesn't shoot that well above the break? RJ, Davion, Ochai, anybody who's
Do
shooting
the
them
best they
besides
can.
Gradey.
That's okay.
So the Raptors are forced to continue battering their way to the rim. That's why their frequency is so high. And also on top of that, they're missing a lot of shots. Why? Because teams know they're trying to get to the rim and they're waiting at the rim. That's why Brook Lopez had such a whale of a game against RJ Barrett in particular. He's like, brother, come on down.
No, they got to drug test Brook Lopez. He hasn't looked like this the entire season. All of a sudden, when Grady got downhill and he was able to shift and move over and block the shot, I was like, nah, this is 2020 Brook Lopez. Doesn't make any sense.
He looked awesome. Like he blocked, I think it was Boucher or maybe it was RJ, where he blocked the guy, then the guy got the rebound and shuffled the pass behind Brook Lopez, and Brook Lopez turned around and blocked the other guy. It's just like, this guy looks like Wemby right now. This looks like Wembanyama. This is absurd. Do you want to talk a little bit about RJ, who has struggled, to put
Yeah.
it lightly?
We've like hammered home and saying like we've been right about him this whole time. So I think it's I think for a good friend us, it's probably good that we address this as well.
Okay, so what do you perceive is happening to RJ that has went from everyone kind of being like, holy smokes, we get the stat head. And again, I love that meme, it's dragging the kid away, not my son, away from stat head. Do not make stat head comparisons, please. I beg of you. I don't want to see Pascal versus Tatum 4 years ago. I don't want to see Scottie versus Paolo now. And I certainly don't want to see RJ versus Luca. Put it away. You're banned. No. So anyway, RJ Barrett. Thoughts?
For RJ, I think he's the person that has like suffered the most with Scotty being injured. Because a lot of the actions that he's coming off of movement, he's working and getting downhill, and often the advantage is created like through the actual play itself, and he's keeping them on his hip and then using his strength to score left or use a counter in that sense. Now that like Scotty isn't on the court and a Quickly isn't on the court, like a lot of the ball handling responsibilities are going through him and Davion, and with RJ, he hasn't developed enough ways to score that other teams are worried about anything he does beyond like 8 feet. So like you even saw with the Bucks, you're able to throw Giannis on him because he's not necessarily a threat to score in between 17 feet. And if he does get Giannis on his hip, Brook Lopez is going to be able to shift and be able to add additional rim protection from there. So like you saw, he has not stopped getting to the rim even like post injury. But he's always been like a streaky 3-point shooter. That's sort of regressed to some degree. I think the 3-point shooting, I think, will more or less be league average by the end of the season. But in terms of like him getting to the rim, usually is mostly dependent on getting in transition, using secondary action to get downhill, and like if you don't have uh, an initial primary that is also a threat to get to the rim, it's hard for teams to respect the fact that RJ Barrett is coming downhill. So like I'm not necessarily worried because that primary will be back in hopefully 2 to 3 weeks.
The interesting thing with RJ is I think the ramping up of attempts of long mid range or middle mid range jumper attempts, I think it threw his 3-point stroke out of whack.
Mm,
He does not really take mid range
yeah,
jumpers. His jump shot mechanics are not friendly towards that. There's a reason why he's like at rim, push shot, set 3-point shooter. The like his jumper is really truncated if he tries to work it into like a leaping pull up. It doesn't make a lot of sense for him. And so we see that the uptick in volume from the long mid range correlates with, a slump from 3. That makes sense to me. An interesting thing too is he's still 91st percentile in pick and roll production. There's a big gap right now between his pick and roll scoring and his pick and roll playmaking. His pick and roll playmaking is still very strong. That's where he's 91st percentile. He's merely passable right now as a pick and roll scorer. But the fact that he keeps hard charging to the rim, there are still playmaking avenues available to him. That's great to see. Like that, even with the struggles, he's
yeah,
still eating innings. He's still Mark Burley on the mound, man. He's still putting up innings. He's getting you through the season. He's saving the bullpen. He's saving the bullpen right now.
yeah.
RJ is a bullpen
He is chewing
saver.
innings.
Yes, he's chewing them up. Big league chew, bubble gum in the mouth, getting to the bucket. It's just teams know what the Raptors are trying to do right now. This
Yeah,
isn't like a cute little 4-game stretch where, IQ comes back soon and Scottie will be, Scottie is there for a moment. It's like, nope, the game plan is this is what it is. There's Gradey and there's RJ. And if anyone else thinks they might be able to create, God bless you, man. We'll see what you have, but we're sure we can react to it. Um, RJ is overextended.
yeah. Like
And yeah,
it's easy to see. Like I would probably be more concerned if like he wasn't getting to the rim overall. Like the yesterday, like you're
he's still
playing,
driving.
uh, yeah, you're playing a team that like have two guys that probably should have defensive player of the year trophies in their closet cat
Cabinet.
cabinet. I
Cabinet.
guess I guess it's a cabinet in their cabinet, but like overall, one thing I think that has been missing. I haven't checked the frequency of it. We haven't seen the push shot as much as we saw last year. That's maybe just because he's not coming off the catch as much as he was like last year. Because he's one of two options on the team right now. But like I think that's going to aid a lot in helping him become more of an efficient scorer. But I think as Scottie comes back and integrates, like his efficiency will go up along with it. And like this is also a good indicator in general. We know to some degree now like what is his best like play type, how he should play off of the other guys, and like his pathway for succeeding. So like not necessarily every portion of like a rebuild and like letting guys play is like supposed to be a positive indicator. You need to figure out what are these negative things so that you can put them in the best positions to succeed.
Yeah. I just looked it up quickly. Apparently, RJ is shooting 29% on his runners, so that is the push shot
Yeah.
this year. Last year with the Raptors, he shot 54%. That is a stark contrast between the two of them. That's a lot. The Raptors are playing Detroit right away. That means Cade Cunningham. So I know we said we were going to redraft Grady's draft, the top 5. Will you join me in redrafting the top 5 of Scottie's draft?
I'm down.
I'll go first. So Scottie Barnes, I think he's number 1. I still, and I'm not going to say it on a Raptors podcast. I'm not going to put Mobley over him. Are you nuts? Are you crazy? I think it's Scottie number 1. Mobley is number 2.
Ooh.
Cade can be
Ooh.
number 3. I'm not, and you better believe I'm not putting Dagum Houston boy. And I don't mean Jalen Green. I mean the other one. He's not sniffing my top 5 man. So Scottie number 1, Mobley number 2, Cade number 3. Number 4, Franz Wagner. Number 5, I'm taking Trey Murphy.
Have some honor, bro. What is wrong with you? You just pick someone to pick somebody. Oh my
I
God.
love Trey Murphy. I could put
I like
Jalen
Trey
Johnson
Murphy too.
there. Let's hear
Oh,
yours then. If you
all
put
right.
Alperen Şengün in there, I'm gonna throw a fit.
Okay, well, I guess we'll see. Number 1, I'm gonna have Scottie. He's been the best player from literally, I would say probably like 30, 40 games in till now. Only All-Star really out of that batch too. Second, I'm gonna have Cade. The reason why I have Cade over Mobley, like, one, Detroit is actually like fairly decent, and two, like, the creation burden he has on his team is significantly higher. He has a harder job than Mobley, and even though, like, with Mobley, like, he's obviously monster defensively, like, he's gonna make all defense one day, maybe even this season, but um, he's still getting spoon fed a lot of his baskets, and like having like two of the best creation backcourts in the league just makes things significantly easier, which none of these 5 have. Um, 3, obviously Mobley having a tremendous season. He's been fairly good. 4, Franz. It's really good to see him just like with Paolo being out, showing that, reminding people like how good he is and how good of a driver he is. And number 5, we have argued about this man for several years. I call him the dancing bear because he's big, he's quick, but he has light feet. Alfred Sengun. I'm
He
taking him
really
5.
light feet. They always get bumped
Yeah.
off his spot on defense. Okay.
Houston is fairly good. They're winning games.
I don't know, and I won't be looking it up because I'm just putting this out into the wind, but I would love if the correlation between his shot attempts going up means that they lose more. Ooh, if there's any we need Goose to do a query for us on that one. Okay, moving on to 2023 NBA draft. The top 5, redrafting the top 5 of 2023. I'll go first. Victor Wembanyama, Brandon Miller, Bilal Coulibaly, Derek Lively, Gradey Dick. Did you know, by the way, that Bilal Coulibaly is shooting 27 of 29 at the rim so far this year?
I've actually watched
That's
quite a amount of
93%.
games. He's him. We told you here first.
Yeah, for anybody who wants to know, but when Bilal was still considered like, a second round flyer, Trey came on the Pull Up Trey podcast. He pulled up and he said, I like as a back end of the lottery selection, Bilal Coulibaly. He's this guy out of France. Everyone went and looked, and he changed the fate.
Oh yeah.
He changed the NBA as we know it.
But both, I'm probably gonna go Wemby first. I know bold. Um, I guess no. Chet was in the draft before. He just was fake rookie. I hate that stuff. Fake rookie. 2, I'm gonna go Brandon Miller still overall.
Yep.
3, I'm gonna go Gradey Dick though. Just the
Whoa!
how unique he is
Whoa!
as a player, and the ways that he's gonna score, I think project fairly well for like a playoff series, and
Yep.
like how little space you have to get to the rim. Those guys that can hit the pull up two and like create space that way, like Devin Booker, like he kills in the playoffs because of that reason. Like being able to score within very confined spaces is super important. Like the Raptors have acquired someone that can do that, which is super rare. 4, I'd have Bilal Coulibaly. I think he's ahead of schedule too. He's doing fairly well. And then 5, I'm going to have Amen Thompson. I really love the defense. I really like the versatility, and I think like eventually like his handle and driving prowess is probably going to lead to like, I don't know how long Fred will be on that team, but like him being the primary initiator, working with Sengun, working with Reed, and being able to like use his athleticism in that way.
I'm going to alter my list. Hearing what you said, I got to bump Gradey. Number 1, we have Victor Wembanyama. Number 2,
Yeah.
Brandon Miller. Number 3, I mean, it's still Bilal for me. Number 4, Gradey Dick. Number 5, Derek Lively. It could be a man. Like Derek
Yeah,
Lively and a man, they could swap in and out.
100%.
I'm just choosing to believe in Lively as like a really effective one of those big men who's around for like 14 years and is just good all the time. I think
Yeah,
it's easy to see that. But
100%.
a man could easily jump over that. If he, I hate being like, well, if he develops a jump shot, because that's the most boring analysis ever. But
Yeah,
I mean, if he develops a jump shot, even passable, if things become kind of crazy for him, that speaks pretty well of the Raptors. At number 13,
we're cooking.
oof, there was a man at the party who yelled Messiah's back, bellowed out from the mountaintops. Uh, that's fun, man. It's been a while since the Raptors have been able to like, hey, we did it. Like
Yeah,
we stole a guy. It's nice. And Mobo looks like another guy like that too.
yeah. Like they've been. We're getting to the mode where we're like, don't let Masai get a good pick before we traded Thad Young off of the strength of it doesn't matter where we pick, and we're getting closer to that point. So like they're probably gonna have another good pick this year, and if you keep stacking like these small, like they're not small, but like you keep stacking wins with picks, that's how you lead to that run they had from 2013 to 2018 of just like stacking really good picks and utilizing them to build a champion.
You know who I didn't see in either of our top fives? Keontae George. Let's can we preview just like a little bit? I guess we have Pistons. Let's just there's a lot going on there. They've been much better. They've been scrappy. That's a scrappy team. And they have like they're just scoring with guards.
Yeah,
Like they just score with guards. They score nowhere else, only with guards. Jalen Duren is scoring 8 points per game. Beef stew, 6. Fontecchio 6, fine, but like Cade 23, Ivy nearly 19, Tim Hardaway Jr. 12 and a half, Malik Beasley 13, Tobias has 14, I guess.
yeah.
What do you make of these Pistons?
Like I think like defensively they're at least like competent in a way that like it that they weren't before. Like and like offensively, like Kate is playing more often and he's become more efficient and like his I think he had struggles with his burst overall, like in general. And like now that's he may not necessarily get all the way to the rim, but that's using your pivot, using his size that he has, and that's leading to like more opportunities overall. I think the Raptors can win that game though. Like we you saw it with like Charlotte, although they didn't win that game, like Davion Mitchell, like if you're facing like a primary ball handler, off night for them. And if
Mm-hmm.
that's an off night for Cade, the Raptors can easily win that game.
Well, geez, I don't think they're gonna win that game, to be honest with you. But it is interesting. Like
Yeah.
the the Pistons are pretty like they're not huge, but they're big in a lot of important places. They're big at the point of attack, right? They're when you have Jalen Duren at the rim, I think he's done pretty well to step in as the outside rim protector. And they have like that scheme where they do want to move teams off of the rim. So they're almost in the top 10 as far as how often they allow teams at the rim. They are in the top 10 as far as their rim defense once people are there. And the important thing, and like a really important thing, is what you mentioned that Cade is not a bursty guy. He's big. And what does that mean? It means you have to play with control. You have to play with a lot of finesse. You know, Luka isn't just the guaranteed comp here, but Luka is an example of how a guy without elite burst manages to manipulate the middle of the court so well. And I think for the first time, Cade has used that control aspect of his game. The handle's in a better place. His game
Yeah.
overall is in a better place, and he's more comfortable taking shots from many different places and playmaking to different areas of the court. Still, I think personally a little underwhelming in how he's able to feed his big men. We see that represented like they're just creating a lot of threes. And that's, that's Tobias Harris, that's Tim Hardaway Jr., that's Malik
Mhm.
Beasley, and Jaden Ivey and, and Cade are responsible for getting to the bucket. It will be interesting to see how the Raptors decide to, I guess, game plan this one because obviously Davion Mitchell is going to be part of it. Obviously, you know, there's nobody else. He's
Yeah, I
gonna
was
have to
gonna say
step
yeah,
up.
we have no
He's gonna have
option.
to step up on somebody. I I'm left to wonder who Grady guards. You know, like where are
Okay.
you sticking Grady? Is it Tim?
Yeah, that actually makes the most sense because like Tobias is just too big and too physical. I think,
Oh,
in my opinion.
Tobias is putting him in hell.
Yeah, so I think it would have to be Tim Hardaway. And you just hope that he can stick like Grady off, like off ball. Like I'm not gonna say confident. The Raptors defense is very bad, but it's at least like somewhat passable in a sense, and like he knows where he needs to be.
Does that mean RJ is guarding Jaden Ivey or Cade Cunningham? Do we get maybe like the Muscle Boys matchup between RJ and Cade? I doubt that.
Yeah, I doubt that. I don't think he could keep up with him.
But Davion versus Cade is such a crazy matchup too, don't you think?
Yeah, because just this amount of size you're giving up, but I don't think
Yeah.
you have a better option overall,
No.
unless you like you start Ochai and put Ochai on him.
Yeah. I
You know,
think
like
you know what? Actually, I think Grady is going to guard Jaden Ivey. I
Jesus Lord.
think I I think RJ is going to guard Tobias Harris.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I think oh no, here it is. Grady is guarding Tim. RJ is guarding Tobias. Davion is guarding Ivy, and Ochai is guarding Cunningham. And then it's
Oh,
Pearl versus Dern. That makes
yeah,
sense.
that works.
Like it makes sense. It's not good, but it makes sense. You know what I mean? Yeah. Holy smokes.
I think they could win the game. I wouldn't be shocked if they won. Like I said, if you get a bad Cade night, I think they can win. Like everything that they do, like he is their solar system. So Davion ball pressure may lead to someone because he's like also someone that isn't necessarily like he's gotten better, but like navigating those tight spaces, like Davion makes everything really, really difficult. Especially if your handle isn't good, you're gonna have to pick up your dribble because of him. So like he might be able to swing the game for them.
Is there anybody interesting you're looking out for as far as like you really like this Pistons team? Should Raptors fans like who's somebody fun you think you could put them onto? And also just as I said, like uh Cade creating for three-pointers out of the pick and roll, they're shooting 44% off of his passes to three-point shots. They're 31 of 70 right now. So that's the Raptors who have been susceptible, maybe further susceptible as it turns out. But yeah, who's exciting on Detroit? Do you think?
Like he doesn't play as much. Like the pick that if the Raptors
Yep.
would have kept their pick, I was hoping that they would have landed like Ron Holland, a guy who's really good in transition. The Raptors love to run. Really good finisher, really good athlete, and like I think has the potential to be a special defender. Like him on the Pistons is fairly weird, just because they kind of drafted the same guy twice, 2 years in a row, like with Asar Thompson. But like of guys that they're going to play, I probably like Simone. Simone is, I think like when the
Wait, is
Raptors
this
were,
Simone or is it Simone or Simone? I thought I heard
I
it
don't know.
as like. Let me look this up, but keep
Okay.
going.
But when the Raptors were in talks like with Utah, he was one of the guys. Like if you could swing him in the deal as well, it looked like Bruce was also going to be attached to that at some point, from what I remember. He's a guy that runs off screens really well, really good shooter. Fairly similar to like see, I always forget which Bogdanovich it is, but I'm pretty sure it's Bogdan
Bojan. No, no,
Bojan
Bojan.
Bojan.
Bogdan is the one who is old but looks
Yes.
young. Bojan is the one who is old and looks old. That's how I sort them out.
But plays similar into the same light. And I think like if the Raptors want to keep like the same synergy of how they play offensively with the Grady, they drafted a Jacoby. You're gonna need more players within that light. So like he's someone that I would watch for, and I wouldn't be shocked if he had a really good game. Also, just because of the Raptors' defense, if Cade is able to get downhill, that's open threes for him.
So I looked it up. Simone
Simone. Huh.
Fontecchio. Here's and also you said it. Jeremy Grant said it. There was kind of this thing in Detroit where it was like we're doing the black thing.
Yeah.
And you said it after they drafted Thompson. If you remember,
I do.
um they only Simone is the only one who isn't. How do you make the turnaround? Like they're doing what we think the Blue Jays should be doing, you know? Where are they in the restoration?
Like they're doing well. They got the hard notes coach. Like for something about JB Bickerstaff like gives me Coach Carter vibes. Like he's just like
He
pushing
would
pushing
complain about your time theft at work.
That's a fact. He definitely says everything is earned, nothing given. He's slamming his freaking board if you don't do the proper closeout. Like he's gotten them to like a level of like competent play that like you'd want to say. He did that for the Cavs, also got them to a certain point. So
Yeah.
I think just for like Detroit in general, like competent play is totally fine. And
I'm on lunch at Foot Locker. I clock back in. Lunch is over, but I'm still at the back desk eating. JB's the only one who saw me, and I'm talking to the manager later that day. I know what happened. Hard nose. He wants everything to be running smooth. That is the perception. Let's do this actually. The perception of Darko. Honestly, where do you see it right now?
I look at it as like good talent developer, really good offensive mind. I think in terms of like head coach, like late clock situations, things like that, we probably haven't necessarily seen like the greatest residuals, but like for the place that the Raptors are in and like the development you've seen from their young guys, like he's smashing it out the park, in my opinion, at least.
So, do you do you think he's seen as like soft?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. And do you think he's only the second European born head coach in the NBA?
Yeah,
Like you forget that sometimes,
that's true. Yeah,
that like he speaks differently than other coaches. He emotes differently than other coaches. He's perceived differently. And that's not to say he's been a good defensive coach. I'm just saying like
yeah,
there's two camps coming at it. There's people
yeah.
like the defense is bad, and there's people like I don't see him yell at players. He's a soft European. Like I feel like I see that sometimes.
I think there's like a couple things. Like one, the pizza party is like the most like I'm the best supply teacher that's ever lived. Like you know like your teachers like everyone does their tasks. We're gonna have a pizza party on this day. Like it gives that vibe. And then probably just like I really enjoyed it, but like the way that he defended Scottie last year gives like that players coach vibe. And players coach usually leans like soft.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Players coach usually is seen as soft. That
Yeah.
does, yeah. Uh yeah, because like a lot of people have that like you should be commandeering, you should be like a dictator of sorts, like what you say goes. That is kind of a thing. Now, this isn't a value judgment I'm making. If you think Darko is soft, I don't think Darko is soft, but if you, the listener, think he's soft, that's your prerogative. And if you think it's because the defense has been bad, very well. As far as I can tell, he has improved the offensive system by some measure. The players that he spoke about in particular taking an interest in, and he has given the most lip service to Scottie and Gradey. We've seen significant steps from both those players under Darko, and those are also the most important steps to take. RJ Barrett, significant steps in the new system. All this stuff is really important. And when I'm at the games, I see Darko interact with these players, not on just on his team, but around the league. He's beloved. He is a really, really well liked coach. He's a really well liked guy. Now, defensively, it's been bad. It's been bad for a year and a bit by now. The difference is their hustle statistics, all of the measurables about effort right now are really strong. The Raptors are trying really hard. I am excited to see whether this defensive stuff sweeps back around. It comes into a better place. That's what I'm waiting to see. And if it never happens, then Darko probably is not going to have this coaching job for a very long time. But in this season, where the team has been decimated by injuries, I think it's easy to just kind of like lean back and say, we're not only waiting on players, we're waiting on this coach. And in my opinion, it is too often in the NBA that coaches get like the brunt end of things, the blunt end of things, when a lot of times teams just like aren't good enough. Like
Yeah.
Nick Nurse is a good coach. I think probably a better coach than Dwayne Casey. However, the
Oh,
biggest change the Raptors
right.
made was Kawhi Leonard joining the team, man. Nick Nurse, if he had been like, okay, I've got DeMar DeRozan, I've got Kyle Lowry, he's not coaching him past LeBron, brother. It's just not happening. Um, I think patience with Darko is necessary, although there's certainly gaffes that have been made.
Oh,
But that's fine.
yeah.
It's all good, brother.
Yeah.
That's kind of my takeaway.
Yeah, because weird is like you don't like expect development out of coaches. You expect them to be like very good right from the start. Like
Yeah.
he's someone that's gonna build with the team.
Yeah,
Like
I
obviously,
watched your podcast, JJ. You're a pretty smart guy.
like I obviously like a bit of like a dichotomy between him and like Nurse. So like Nurse, I'm gonna maximize and squeeze this team to get as many regular season wins as possible. And like there was residual effects that we've spoken ad nauseum probably to that. And whereas like Darko, it's
Yeah, they like the res the residual effect. It's like when you're playing Fallout New Vegas and you had you probably didn't play it, but basically based on the deeds you did during the
wait,
game,
why did you assume I didn't play it? I haven't, but what did you assume?
because you call me a nerd and a geek all the time, because you
Fair
call
enough.
me a loser who plays.
Carry on.
So anyway, you can have infamy with certain clans and groups. So like if there's this group that you've done something that goes against them, the game will tell you like you're disliked. They hate you. And at some point during his coaching stint with the Raptors, Nick Nurse got that tag. It popped up on the screen. Notification unlocked. You are disliked. Like it. Yeah. Anyway, go ahead.
But yeah, like Darko, you're gonna see lamps where like Bruno Fernando's gonna get like a random 10 minutes. Hasn't been that bad, actually. I'm gonna give him some love. He's dunked on he dunked on Giannis.
I knew it all going back to that.
What do you
That
mean he caught that one pick and roll the other game?
I this is so I watched the game last night at Blake's house,
Yeah,
and it was so nice. It was the first time I didn't have to take my podcast equipment all over, to Blake's house.
yeah.
But we are talking about that. We're kind of saying like I think Bruno is going to get more slack than he deserves, probably because he dunked twice, which is, for a big man is hilarious. But it's awesome because he has a career highlight now. That's the best play of his career.
Yeah.
Pocket pass from Grady, slick little dime. Pop,
Put it on his head.
yeah, right on his head, man. And
But yeah,
he'll have that forever.
he's gonna
Wait,
play guys like that. Jamal Shed's gonna play some minutes, and sometimes it's not always gonna be good. I think the last like 5 or 6 have been rough for Jamal, just overall. Like
okay. Bruno Fernando. Does he have Instagram? Let me look him up.
he must.
Bruno
Yeah.
Fernando. If he has Instagram, what are the chances that on his Instagram story right now is him bopping it on Giannis's head? What do you think that
Not
is?
96% chance.
Okay. What do you think the chances are that he has a post about it as well?
99%.
99?
Easily.
Okay. Looking.
Have I dunked on Giannis?
He has a post. He has five separate. Oh wait. He has 5 pictures of it, and he has the poster on Zubats,
Oh, gee.
and he has him making a layup over Anthony Davis. Good for him. His Instagram story, yep. Oh, it's on there. Posted twice from 2 different accounts. That's, you know what? Gas yourself up,
Yeah,
man.
there's 100%.
Celebrate the wins. If I dunked on Giannis, me,
Yeah.
you never hear the end of it.
It was a little.
I dunked on nobody, and I'm still annoying about it.
Giannis shrieked in terror. He turned. He was like, "Oh God, this guy's coming back
Yeah.
fast."
I saw in the comments people were saying like Giannis didn't even contest. They were
Oh,
trying to make it not a poster. I was like, he was huddled in fear.
yeah.
That's a poster, man. No ifs, ands, or buts. That's just cope.
You
There's
got
no way
bombed.
that isn't a poster. Anything else you want to talk about before we get out of here?
No, not really. I just think like Grady keep on playing, keep on lighting the hope that we have every week. If he
He is the
continues this,
lifeline.
he really is. And like the cool thing about basketball is like things that like everything is just so unpredictable, and like the way players trend up and down like from week to week is crazy. And for someone this young to just kind of be like this the whole time, this bodes well for like what they want to achieve.
Could you imagine what it would look like, what we talk about if, like, let's say Davion averages like 2 more points per game, Jamison Battle has 1 or 2, like maybe I guess Jakob's already in a career high, but like if Grady was averaging like 14 or 15,
Ooh.
I don't know what we'd be talking about. Would we be talking about like, well, this is how Cooper Flagg looked tonight? You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like Grady is the savior of not only the team's watchability night in and night out, but the work, the coverage that follows. He is carrying a very heavy boulder on that shoulder, man.
closeout king, content king.
Yep. No kidding. All right, Trey, what do you want to say to the people before we get out of here?
I feel like I need a catchphrase. Like you have a nice little send off, and I'm just like, oh
I've been working at this this is year 3 for you, actually. The
yeah.
creation reps, they have to start.
Well, like I'm playing like I'm going up and down from the G. I'm like Delano Banty minutes. I'm supposed
Oh, okay. Listeners, you just heard us laughing. There was a joke that was made that you don't get to get to hear. Javon, do you have a catchphrase for us?
I'm gonna work on this in the comments. If you have a catchphrase for me, if it's really good, I will say it.
You're gonna crowdsource. You
But
are
that's
you are a marketer, man. You need
the
the
way of the
data.
world.
Ooh. Actually, I'll ask you this: you're the marketer?
Yes.
This is your send off. How are you marketing this team this year?
I think it's the basketball nerd's dream. You have all these different players that have gotten drafted fairly high, and they're in high usage situations, and they're playing a style of play that fits the modern NBA. It's watchable basketball for everybody because they're not getting blown out. They're playing really hard, and they're playing a fun style as well.
Basketball nerd. When I talked to, I won't say who, obviously, but a couple people with the Raptors organization around, like, what does this year look like for you guys as far as like marketing this team? They were relying, I think, like heavily on the nostalgia and being able to like new jerseys, new courts, celebrations, Vince's night, like all that kind of stuff. And I think they've been extremely pleasantly surprised by what, similar to us, Grady popping off has allowed them to access from like a marketability standpoint. Because not only has Grady been good, but he's also a wildly popular player. The type of player that not only do the nerds like, but that Barstool Sports is trying to like, he has that vast appeal that he can go into a lot of different places. Trey, I don't have a Dagum send off, not a new one. I'll just keep it the same as it's always been. Thank you to everybody for tuning in. Like the video, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff before you get out of here. Thank you so much for tuning in, whether you got into this in the morning or at night. From myself, from Trevon, have a blessed day and goodbye.